Has the two-wheeler EV revolution actually begun? Now that Ola has unveiled its new product on the 15th of August and made big claims about how it will be a disruptor in the market, it's a good opportunity to look at some things that are being claimed. One of them is a hope that Bhavish Aggarwal of Ola has that all two-wheelers in India will turn electric or should turn electric by 2025. Is that feasible? Has Ola in a sense stolen a march over traditional OEMs? Did it come out of the blue and sort of change the game, or are these early days yet? Now that we know the specs officially of what Ola's two-wheeler looks like, we know that government, state and centre are very keen to push subsidies, and we know the pricing. Let's take a look at whether this will actually work out. So talking to me on this today are Nikunj Sanghi and Hormazd Sorabjee. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for joining us on the show. Mr. Sanghi, are you excited after what you've seen over the weekend, and do you think that this deadline of 2025 where two-wheelers in India should all go electric is actually achievable?
So I'm definitely excited, and I think what Ola has announced is extremely disruptive and actually sounds too early to believe what they have claimed. And if they do deliver what they are saying they will, and if they do get the numbers, if they're able to ramp up production, and more importantly, create the service backbone which is required for any moving vehicle, including an EV, then yes, what he is saying is doable. But I'm skeptical, and I'd want to wait for some time before I really endorse what he has said.
Yeah, so Hormazd, would you like to come in here? So 2025 for all two-wheelers to go electric is obviously a big ambition put out there. There's no deadline as such. This is what Bhavish is hoping that people do and others follow suit. Do you think the time has come, looking at the aggressive pricing that we're looking on the Ola scooter, do you think it will in fact cause a disruption?
Well, I think I would, echo what Nikunj said, and clearly I think it is what his announcement is, potentially can be a huge disruption. I mean, you look at the pricing; it's undercut all the other EV scooters by a big margin. And if you take all the final subsidies, the state subsidies, and add up everything, it comes, the on-road price could come very close to an IC engine scooter. And the fact that, fuel prices have gone through the roof, petrol prices have gone through the roof, that could again, accelerate demand for it even further. In fact, I think the fuel prices is becoming a kind of a pivot point for EVs, not just two-wheelers, but overall. But, again, I would be, let's say, not skeptical, but I would be very cautious in making these claims. The two-wheeler business is a very, very nuanced business. It's not like making paper clips or something. Firstly, you've got to get the supply chain absolutely right. So on the supply side, you've got to get that sorted. We don't have a supply base for EVs really as yet. That has to be built up. And, talking 4 years to go 2025, I mean, if you see in the auto industry where long lead times are needed for development, that's almost like tomorrow. So I think that also is not feasible at all for the entire two-wheeler industry to go all electric by 2025. And I think it will be a gradual process led by regulations mainly. Also, I think, selling a two-wheeler again is very different. It's not like selling any electronic gadget like a smartphone where you just buy it once and that's it, and then you even replace it every year or so. Two-wheelers do need a certain level of service. They need a proper retail network. They need a service network, even though EVs fundamentally require less service than an IC engine. But, things like accidents, suspension damage to potholes, all of that sort of stuff needs proper trained manpower to keep those bikes in good shape. And don't forget, people will hang on to this for a long time. It has to be a good investment. There has to be good resale value for it. So these are the factors, these are the nuances which, on paper, they are not there. So right now, very disruptive, but I think getting into it, once you roll your sleeves up and get into the two-wheeler business, it's very nuanced. And, I think there will be challenges ahead.
You know what is interesting to see at this point, and let me take this to Nikunj, is how Ola out of the blue seems to have come up with a product that we're talking about as a possible disruptor. Where are all the stalwarts who have been working on electric vehicles and actually all have their own products all of this time? So is it that the promise that Ola is now showing to people is too good to be true, or have they cracked some code that everyone else didn't see?
So I think everybody did see it, but like Hormazd said, that it's not easy. Automobile business, I think developing the entire backbone of automobile business is neither simple nor easy. And there is a time lag between an idea to actually fructify into a reality. And those nuances, I think, definitely need to be understood. And I think the traditional OEMs who are already there, they understand this business. They've seen how this business grows and why it is so important for the entire backbone, the entire ecosystem to be evolved before a reliable distribution network is set up, a reliable service network is set up, for the consumer to get that confidence that, yes, if I'm buying a vehicle and it's a huge investment that he is making, that it's going to be safe, it's going to be serviceable, and that it's going to be resellable. And that's a huge challenge. So, but giving credit to Ola, I think since entry into the EV space is easier than entry into IC engines, it's I think the entire R&D which used to go into an IC engine vehicle was focused on the driveline the most. I think that mystery is not there, and that amount of input is not there. And I think most of the EV manufacturers today are into buying components off the shelf, assembling them and selling them. And there's hundreds of small players which have already mushroomed all over the country. So those entry-level hurdles that you see in an IC engine are not there in the EV space, and therefore you will probably see a lot of non-traditional people coming in, just like Ola, into this space, and therefore it could be called disruptive.
It's an exciting time, definitely, for the space. But let me take a look at this from the consumer point of view and follow up for you, Nikunj. Will we see the clamor for EV outside your big cities and your metros? Now, two-wheeler EVs have been growing at quite a phenomenal pace since 2016, a 50-60% growth that we've been seeing, even though it's a small segment overall. Outside your Mumbai, Delhi, Bengaluru, do you see that demand still continuing for something that is relatively new?
So let me, Tamanna, talk about Alwar, which is where my dealerships are, and which is a tier 2 town, small population. And we did have some EV retailers, specifically Hero Electric was there. And this dealership was not even doing 10 vehicles a month. And in spite of all efforts, it's a very small outlet in not so premium location. And I was looking at the Vahan figures today. He has already retailed over 50 vehicles in less than 15 days. And when I spoke to him, he said, sir, I have a booking list. I don't have vehicles available off the shelf. Now, that is something that we really need to very closely watch and look at. If this is the kind of thing which is happening in a small town like Alwar, and the trigger definitely is the fuel prices. They've crossed 100 rupees a liter, and the target customer, the bottom of the pyramid, the first-time user, I don't think there is any way he can afford this kind of operational cost, and that is what is triggering the demand for EVs. And I think what Ola has done is actually catch the imagination of that customer, but it's still on paper. And exciting times, definitely. I would want to watch this
Are you
space.
surprised hearing this? Yeah, Hormazd, that question for Hormazd. Are you surprised hearing this, that Nikunj Sanghi is reporting demand for two-wheeler EVs in Alwar?
at all. In fact, quite honestly, two-wheeler owners, they're more interested in saving their pockets than the planet. And clearly the trigger is the kind of running cost, not so much the environmental impact. Let's be honest on that. And I think they quickly do a quick equation on, the purchase price versus the running cost. So no, not surprised at all. And I think, yes, it will grow. But, my point is, I think more than demand, there will be challenges on the supply side. Don't forget, a lot of these components are still imported. We don't have a supply base. People are running on very thin margins for this. They depend on subsidy. Batteries fundamentally are still expensive. They haven't come down to a rate which we want. We don't produce cells in India as yet. That will take time. So all these factors, which do impact the cost to the manufacturer. And of course, as I said, the subsidies, how long will they be retained for? But I think the point is, two-wheeler EVs as a concept is absolutely fantastic because firstly, it plays to the EV really well in the sense that there's limited running. I mean, they typically would do 100 kilometers a day, which is fine for an EV. The batteries are small, so they recharge faster. They could even be swappable and even removed. So the whole piece for EVs, I think, as Nikunj said, low-hanging fruit are the two-wheelers. And of course, the last mile connectivity for commercial use like three-wheelers and all. So I think cars definitely some time away, but I think two-wheelers, it is very exciting. And, one has to appreciate what Ola has done. They've kind of started this thing because let's be honest, and if you look at what's happened in the last couple of months, the kind of way the weather has changed, climate change. I mean, here in Mumbai, we never used to be lashed with cyclones on the western seaboard. That all is happening. Global warming is definitely an issue and it's come home. And I think the faster we move to a carbon-free or low carbon future, the better it is.
Just that same question to you, Hormazd, as well. What are all the stalwarts in the business doing? Do you think that they have lost the momentum, your heroes and Bajajs? Or do you think that, they're just waiting to see what happens with Ola and then have actually the scale and the experience to take them on in the same space?
Big advantage Ola has over the others is cash and funding. SoftBank is pumping in money into this. They want to disrupt the market. They will buy market share. They will cash burn on this, which is typically what startups do. Typically, traditional OEMs don't have that kind of luxury. They are answerable to shareholders. And let's be honest, the IC engines make the profits. The IC engines, the profits from the IC engines goes into the development of the future. So in this very critical transition, it's the profits from IC engines which will give the investment for developing future electric vehicles. I'm sure all of them are doing it at some point. Right now, the market still is very, very small despite these exploding numbers on a small base. But I think they need to have it as an insurance in their pocket because clearly, with regulation change, the perception of EVs, the way it is, the IC engines turning out to be the bad guy, and it's unable to fight back anymore. So I think EVs is the way. They need to have that insurance. But I think they also do realize that the profits come from the IC engines, and that's what will drive the future development of their EVs. So it's a bit of, how do I say it? They have to be a little delicate in the way they balance their future product development and future product strategy.
Yeah, and new players like Ola or even Ather don't have that baggage. So it's definitely interesting times ahead. The proof is going to be in the pudding. Does the service network hold up? Does the consumer experience hold up? And we'll watch this space. Thank you so much, Hormazd and Nikunj, for joining us on the chat today. Just to tell our viewers what's been happening while we're talking about electric vehicles and two-wheelers, one big pivot, as our panelists explained, is the high prices of fuel, which petrol has been hovering around 100 plus in several cities over the last many weeks. There is unlikely to be any big relief on that front. That was made clear today by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who was speaking to journalists in an off-camera, on-record briefing. And she spoke about whether the central government will lower the taxes it charges on fuel, on petrol and diesel, talking about how it's impossible to do that right now because of oil bonds that the UPA government issued. So she said UPA government had reduced fuel prices by issuing oil bonds of rupees 1.44 lakh crores. I can't go by the trickery played by them. Due to oil bonds, the burden has come on our government. That's why we're unable to reduce prices of petrol and diesel. So in that backdrop, with this also taking a political twist, there doesn't seem to be any immediate relief, at least on petrol and diesel prices, which is what could be giving EVs another big push.